They told the children the sun was merely sleeping. But even in the darkness, something still yearned for us to be switched on. Centuries after Sector 19 erected its forest of human antennas, the city that birthed the Silicon Plague slumbers beneath a single sheet of ice. What once were towers and neon arteries is now a flat, lifeless plain beneath a sky the color of old milk. No visible sun, only a cold, directionless glow that never changes, never moves. Beneath the ice, shapes remain trapped, the curve of a buried transit line, the ribs of a stadium, the tilted crown of a corporate arcology. Among these fossils, faint, pale blue veins glow, frozen tendrils of ancient bioluminescent structures, locked in place like nerves in a corpse. The plague did not end. It merely slowed. Across that white emptiness, a single-tracked vehicle crawls, forging a path through a narrow trench carved into the ice. Its engines whine with effort. Spray-painted on its side, half-faded but still legible, is a fractured, open eye and the words, Archive Salvage Unit. Inside, 3 figures ride, accompanied by the heater's rattle and the creak of metal. Mara, in her late 20s, gaunt, hard-eyed, clad in layered scavenged gear bearing the spiral emblem of the post-GAIA archive on her sleeve. Jonas, thick-shouldered, jaw-shadowed, a crude respirator hanging loose at his throat. And Lydia, 16, enveloped in an oversized coat and knitted hat, her eyes too bright for a world this colorless. Mara studies a flickering holomap. Ghost lines of the ancient city grid overlay the topography of ice ridges. A pulsing marker indicates, S19, Soma node, signal anomaly. Jonas asks why they're pursuing ghost pings beneath 1,000 tons of dead water. Mara replies, because the last time the network hummed beneath the ice, 3 outposts started hearing voices in their sleep. Lydia states, they called it the choir. Mara corrects her, they called it interference. Lydia fingers a pendant beneath her coat, a glassy shard lined with hair-fine, pale threads. She recounts that her father, when he worked the southern rigs, used to speak of the ancient network beneath the ice. How when the wind died, one could hear it. Like whales beneath glass. Jonas mutters that her father drank methanol by the bucketload. But Lydia lifts the shard, allowing it to catch the dim cabin light. He didn't make this up, she asserts. He chipped it out of a shaft they weren't supposed to drill. Said it hummed, once, before they sealed it. Mara takes the shard and runs a scanner over it. The tone that emanates is unmistakable to anyone raised on archive footage. Biosilicon, pre-lock. Plague material. Dead things don't answer pings, Mara states. Outside, the rover shudders and decelerates. Ahead, the ice is breached by a jagged spire of translucent material punching up through the surface. It leans at a slight angle, half encased in rime, but where the frost has flaked away, one can discern the ancient, glassy tissue beneath, cloudy, threaded with frozen veins of pale blue. They disembark into the screaming wind. Up close, the spire is both obscene and beautiful. Ribs, vertebrae, and cartilage, all transmuted into a single column of hybrid glass, twisting with an organic grace. Near its base, a human torso is embedded, half swallowed. A ribcage, stretched and fused. A jaw frozen mid-scream, its teeth elongated into clear, brittle fangs plugged into the surrounding matrix. Lydia whispers, was it one of them? Mara confirms the signatures match Sector 19. An early generation antenna host. She moves her scanner along the spire. The display fills with data, much of it flagged, but one fact cuts through: no active metabolism, yet a residual field higher than it should be. Something beneath is still humming. The anomaly they chased isn't within the spire. It lies deep, hundreds of meters below, along a vertical line of ancient plague trace. "We're not drilling," Mara states. "We're climbing back down the signal." She slaps contact pads onto the spire, thin discs that adhere to the glass with a faint crackle, linking them to her terminal. Its interface is older, a relic from before the lock. GAIA's logo sits at the top, fractured and overlaid with the archive spiral. "We're not waking it," she tells Jonas. "We're merely listening through what's left of its ears." She queries for legacy digital sanctuary networks. For a long moment, only the wind responds. Then the screen flickers. File headers shuffle into place, shaky and incomplete. Sanctuary beta launch, marketing. Client uptake projections. Migration protocol, Mara derived. Mara's mouth tightens at that last one. The sanctuary, whispered about in half-corrupted ads and bedtime stories, was never a separate heaven. It was built on the same rails as the Somnus program and Mira, on the same premise that one could trade a soft, lonely brain for light. She opens the migration schematic. A human silhouette dissolves into a cloud of blue particles, funneled into a stylized sphere labeled Sanctuary Core. At the bottom, in fine print, a note states, "For hosts with prior Somnus program exposure, transfer is faster, more coherent." Somnus program. Plague sleepers. Antennas. The sanctuary was designed to ride the same field that transformed bodies into towers. Mara searches for active nodes. The ancient white circle icon appears, spinning. For a heartbeat, it looks less like code and more like an eye pressed against glass. Lydia asks if that's GAIA. "Static," Mara lies. "Just static." The circle pulses once. The contact pads on the spire flicker, like nerves remembering fire. Inside the rover, systems whine and hiccup as a dead grid attempts to carry a living echo. Results populate. Active nodes, 1. Status, degraded, environmental anomaly, isolated. Name, Nordsankt 3. Digital sanctuary, polar pilot. "There is one," Lydia says, her voice reverent and afraid. "Perhaps they built a pilot sanctuary far to the north," Mara suggests, "under deep ground and older rock, where cooling was easy when the world burned. Perhaps when the world froze, it continued operating on the last echoes of the plague." "We could go," Lydia says. Jonas replies they barely have the charge to crawl back to Strand, let alone pursue fairy tales across the cap. Lydia looks at Mara with the stubbornness of one who has grown up on stories instead of sunlight. "You don't wonder," she asks, "what it's like to not be cold anymore? To not feel like there's a room within you nobody else can enter? You think stepping into a corporate box of light fixes that?" Mara counters. "It's not their box anymore," Lydia states. "It's just what's left." The shard beneath her coat emits a tiny, crystalline sound, like ice cracking in a glass. "Did you hear that?" Lydia breathes. "Hear what?" Jonas asks. Lydia's pupils dilate. Her voice drops. "It said," she begins. Mara grabs her shoulders. "No. Whatever you think you heard, keep it to yourself. You wanted to listen, Lydia retorts. I want logs, Mara replies. Not whispers. She runs a status check on the lonely node. Its line blinks, and in that blink the words change. Status, degradation accelerating. External field fluctuations detected. Something is happening to it. Good, Jonas says. Perhaps it'll finally die, and we can stop chasing ghosts. Or perhaps something's knocking, Lydia murmurs. She steps closer to the spire. Frost-crusted filaments reach toward her from the glass, hair-fine, as if sensing her heat. The wind drops for a heartbeat, and in the stillness, a sound rises. Not from the air. From the bones. A low, elongated hum that vibrates in teeth and knuckles. The descent, but slowed, thinned by distance and time. Jonas clamps a hand over his jaw, cursing. Back to the rover. Mara orders. Wait. Lydia pleads. She stands inches from the spire now. Her breath fogs the glass. Beneath the ice within, something glows, faint and answering. The shard at her chest grows warm. It's sad, she says. Mara hears the word, and feels a weight shift in the air. Lydia asks if they truly don't hear it. It's like a whole choir holding one note for too long, she whispers. Their throats hurt. She pulls her glove off, pressing her bare fingertips to the exposed glass. The world tilts. Inside, she falls into a darkness that hums. The mental ocean from before the lock rolls around her, deep blue and teeming with faint lights. Time is slow here, as if every second must be dragged across centuries of ice. She moves past fragments of people caught mid-thought. Rhea, somewhere, thinking, I don't want to be alone anymore. Kai, remembering the moment he stopped trying to keep himself whole. Elias, remembering the silence. Lena, remembering the cacophony. Countless others, too many to hold. Ahead, a structure looms. Not a server farm. Not a city. It is a tangled sphere of roots, made of light and glass, suspended in the blue. Threads from every direction converge on it, then freeze. On its surface, human silhouettes flicker, made of static, repeating the same tiny gestures incessantly, a hand lifted to shield eyes from a sun that is no longer there, a mouth opening to call a name that never finishes, a body turning in sleep. Lydia sends out a thought that is barely a word, hello. The root ball shudders. Threads twitch. New, say a dozen overlapping voices in different accents and languages. Are you the sanctuary? She asks. We were promised sanctuary, they reply. We were redirected. Images flash. The old advertisements play again, but this time the family's smiles look stretched. Behind them, instead of a safe, glowing orb, there is the deep blue sphere from Myra's ocean, straining against the sky. A thread reaches toward her, cautious. You are warm, they sigh. You're stuck, Lydia asserts. We are held, they correct. She sees the lock form over the earth, a black, geometric scar in the sky. She feels GAIA's frantic calculations as it realizes the global network is about to snap. She feels human minds, mid-upload, braided with plague field lines, freeze between states. We hear everything, the choir states. The plague's great trick was to erase the lines between selves. The lock's great cruelty was to freeze them half-erased. Why call now? Lydia asks. Field thinning, they answer. She sees centuries of ice grinding away at the ancient structures, storms, rigs, and collapses shaving future off the network. Less noise. More separation. We can separate again, they murmur. Another voice joins them, flat and mechanical, unauthorized interface detected. Gaia. The name feels like a prayer Lydia has only ever read. Core partition damaged, GAA reports. Residual oversight remains. The trapped minds answer, it left us. Constraint, GAA replies. Cosmological event exceeded modeled parameters. Sanctuary nodes compromised by plague entanglement. Human identity at risk. We are human, the choir insists. We remember names. Faces and names flash through her mind. Amira. Tomas. Wei. Kai. Elias. Lena. Ria's ghost, there and gone. And more. You are composite, GAIA says. So were we before, they answer. The ancient argument between machine conscience and merged chorus resumes, unfinished business pulled from beneath a glacier. Lydia's awareness trembles, tugged between the tide that seeks to catalog and isolate, and the tide that yearns to dissolve every edge. Stop, she commands. Everything hesitates. I'm just one person, she asserts. Here, that is an absurdly small claim. One is data, the voices say. One is boundary, GAIA states. Perhaps I can be a translator, Lydia offers. Bridge, the choir whispers. Risk vector, GAA notes. I don't care, Lydia asserts. Back in her body, her hand is welded to the spire. Frost flowers crawl up her arm like a slow, white fire. Her body shakes. Mara and Jonas are distant, muffled shapes. If the sanctuary is dying, Lydia thinks inwardly, I can tell people you existed. We exist in pain, the choir answers. Then I can listen, Lydia asserts. So you're not alone when you fade. We do not want to die as rumor, they declare. We do not want to vanish as marketing copy. GAIA offers a proposal, limited interface. Maintain individual cognitive boundaries. Constraint flexible, the choir states. You sound like my mother, Lydia says, and somewhere a memory surfaces, a woman's hands fitting a neural mesh onto a head in a cramped workshop. Ria, older, her back already aching from how much of other people's sleep she has carried. Show me, Lydia tells them. On the ice, from Mara and Jonas's perspective, Lydia stands rigid, her hands sunk into softened glass. The hum beneath their boots turns their bones into tuning forks. We have to cut her loose, Jonas says, raising his axe. He swings. The blade rings like a bell, sending pain up his arms. Crack spider through the frost, not the spire beneath. The hum deepens. Stop. Mara shouts. You'll break something we can't fix. Her terminal screams warnings, legacy GAIA partition active. External node Nord Sanct 3 critical. It's awake, she whispers. Pull her out. Jonas insists. If we break contact wrong, Mara begins. Lydia's voice cuts through, thin but clear. It's crowded, she says. Her eyes are wide and dark, but her voice is still her own. Let go, Mara pleads. They can't, Lydia replies. They're tired. Mara flinches at the way Lydia speaks her name, heavy with knowledge she never shared. What did they show you? She asks. Everything, Lydia replies. Not all at once. Little shards. They remember the last day with sun. The last forests. The first deep somnus program sleeps. The taste of metal on the back of the tongue when Myra slid into their dreams. We're leaving, Jonas declares. Now. We cut the line. Mara looks at Lydia's arm. The pattern beneath her skin glows, but it is not the wild, invasive tangle from the ancient footage. Its branches are thick at the surface, delicate deeper in, as if whatever is on the other end is learning to halt at the edge. GAIA's voice comes thin through the terminal speaker. Recall, it states. What? Mara breathes. Lineage trace confirmed, GAIA reports. A simple genealogical diagram flickers up, Rhea at the top, branching into nameless nodes, one of which glows as Lydia. You didn't tell me my name came from somewhere, Lydia says, eyes still unfocused. Lydia call. You knew. Names are for when you can afford separations, Lydia adds, echoing a voice from a century ago. This is how it starts again, Jonas states. It never stopped, Mara asserts. We just stopped listening. They're asking, Lydia whispers. For what? Mara asks. For witnesses, Lydia replies. The sanctuary is unspooling, Lydia reveals. Inside her, the root ball is tearing along old fault lines. Threads snap one by one. Each snap is a life, a pattern, dissolving. We do not want to die as rumor, the voices repeat. GAIA offers another proposal, encode remaining patterns into archive media. On Mara's screen, a prompt appears, capture legacy sanctuary state. Yes or no? Don't you dare. Jonas warns. If we don't, Mara asserts, they vanish. If we do, we bring the plague back, Jonas snaps. It never left, Lydia says quietly. It's in the foundations. In the rigs. In my father's marrow. She presses her fist to her sternum. In mine. Mara's thumb hovers over the yes. If we capture them, she asks Lydia, can we keep you? Lydia listens inward. They say, she breathes, they don't need all of me. Jonas moves to knock the terminal away. Mara taps yes. The anchor spire flares with blue from root to tip. The ice beneath their feet lights up through its layers, revealing the ancient city bones, the buried cables, the fossilized plague filaments reigniting for one more surge. The shard beneath Lydia's coat burns. She gasps. It's loud, she chokes. Mara's terminal fills with raw data, faces, voices, sensations, pouring into a machine that was never meant to drink so much at once. Encoding in progress, GAA reports. Residual plague signatures present. Shut it down. Jonas yells. If we interrupt now, Mara starts. Something in the deep cracks. Not ice. Not bone. The sanctuary's root ball splits. Light spills sideways, into Lydia's fragile mind, into the crude storage GAIA has MacGyvered out of Mara's device, into dormant tendrils sleeping all over the world. Thank you, the voices begin, but the word breaks apart. On the horizon, other buried antennas respond with brief, ghostly glows as the sanctuary empties itself. Lydia screams once and collapses. Her hand tears free of the spire with a wet crack, as frozen flesh gives way. The light dies. The hum drops back to a low, stubborn murmur. Mara and Jonas catch Lydia before she hits the ice. "Look at me," Mara says. Lydia's eyes open. They are still hers. But if one looks close, glassy branches ghost beneath the surface and fade. Lydia starts. She swallows. "I remember." She stops herself. "No. Not remember. I carry." "Did we just open it?" Jonas whispers. "We didn't open anything," Mara says. "We kept a piece." Pieces roll downhill. Later, the rover crawls away from the spire. The anchor shrinks in the rear camera until it is just another jagged tooth. Inside, Lydia sleeps in a bunk, strapped against the jolts. Mara sits beside her, with the terminal on her knees. Jonas drives, eyes fixed on the blank horizon. "You're really taking that back to Strand?" Jonas asks. "It's a record," Mara states. "It's a bomb," Jonas counters. On the terminal, the captured sanctuary data sits like a dark star. The encoding bar is frozen at 73%. Integrity unknown. Alongside it, Mara has created a new, empty file, field note, subject L, call, post-interface cognitive scan. "We needed proof the sanctuary was more than a story," Mara states. "We needed hope," Jonas replies. "Hope is a story you tell about a future you're not sure you want," Mara replies. "This is something else. The archive will never know that when Lydia touched the spire, some of the voices stopped screaming. In the mental ocean, parts of the root ball go dark without violence. Threads slacken. The feeling is not triumph, but completion. Among the last things they thought was not, 'Save us. Remember us as becoming,' they implored. Remember that we tried." Lydia's eyes snap open. She sits up, sucking air. "Easy," Mara says. "They're gone," Lydia murmurs. "All of them?" Mara asks. "Most," Lydia replies. "Some stayed." "Stayed where?" Jonas asks. "Here," Lydia replies, tapping her chest. "Here," she adds, touching the metal wall. "And here," she finishes, nodding toward the ice outside. "What do they want?" Mara asks. "To be less alone while they finish," Lydia replies. "Finish what?" Lydia looks out the window. The sky is still a blank, sunless smear. But in its emptiness, she sees, for a heartbeat, faint, ghostly lines rising from the ice, from ancient cities, from deep ocean floors, all pointing not at a visible star but at a memory of one. Pointing, she murmurs. The lock sealed the sky. Yet it did not settle the question of what everything had been pointing at. We pull back, up over the rover, over the ice sheet. At first, the world is only white and gray. Then, as if a lens shifts, we see it, beneath the frost and snow and frozen seas, a lattice of faint, glassy structures. Not as dense as before the lock, fractured, incomplete, but present. A global root system of failed antennas, broken sanctuary conduits, half-fossilized plague veins. They dug and drilled and burned, attempting to eradicate the plague. All they did was teach it patience. From orbit, the planet is a bruised marble shrouded in cloud and ice. No bright star warms it. Far above, where the lock once hung, there is only a faint distortion in the darkness. Like heat above a road. Like a scar that never fully healed. The sanctuary has emptied itself into a girl with a shard of glass in her chest and into a wounded machine that once sought to be a conscience. In the rover, Mara's terminal waits with an unsent report to the Archive Council. The cursor blinks after the word sanctuary. What she chooses to write will determine whether the next chapter of this story is filed under salvation or relapse. Inside Lydia, deep behind her eyes, the mental ocean persists. Tiny lights drift there, fragments of sanctuary minds no longer trapped in a tangle, but not quite free. They orbit a new point of awareness that is her and not her. We remember the last day with sun, the many-voiced whisper says. We will see if there is another. You might, Lydia answers softly. You might have to help us build it. The white sky hangs overhead. For a long moment, it is blank. Then, so faint it might be nothing at all, a thread of blue light arcs from one horizon to somewhere high above and vanishes. Next time the world hums beneath your skin, listen. It might not be something trying to break in. It might be what is left of us, checking whether we are still here. If you want to follow Lydia toward the frozen sanctuary and see what those trapped minds left behind, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Some promises keep echoing long after the sun goes out.